Hey, Paul.
Hey Fab, how are you?
I'm great. Yourself?
Good. Good to see you today.
Good to see you. Nice to see you in your vacation home.
Yes, rented
Awesome.
a house here in the Gas Bay, and that's where I'm at.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, cool. So today's not a live show, recorded show, so that's always a little different, but the content will still be as amazing. um, so this is something that came up as I was, I've been sitting in on a few sales trainings for myself and stuff like that, and this idea of like obviously we need to ask questions and all that, and that's starting to make sense. um but sometimes there's this idea also like having to challenge your prospects, right? Like you're talking to them and they might say something like, my salespeople can't close, and or whatever. Obviously it varies by industry and what you're selling and stuff like that, but and I'm realizing that it's difficult for a lot of people to challenge, right? Like it's not in our, I mean, maybe some cultures are more challenge prone, but I definitely here in North America, we're definitely not challenge prone. So it's something that's a little more difficult, I'm saying, for a lot of
Yeah,
people.
it's also a character thing. Some people, um, I think, some people's characters make it such that it's harder for them to challenge. Honestly,
Exactly. And so, but it can be part, right? It's, in some cases, you're speaking to a prospect who kind of understands what you're saying and the challenge, and they're very aware, and the challenge might not be as strong. But in some cases, you'll definitely need to push back. Let's put it that way. And so I wanted to know if you could share some advice on how to challenge a prospect.
yeah, I think the first thing is your state of mind.
Okay.
It's why are you challenging?
Hmm.
Um, and the only time that you should be challenging, and I firmly believe this, is if you think you can help them move forward in what they're trying to do. So if you're challenging just to help yourself,
So what
they're
do you
going
mean
to.
by that?
Well, if you're challenging, if you're saying someone, let's say, very simple example, you're a car dealership and you're selling cars, and the client says to you, "Great car, I want to think about it. I'll call you back next week." And you say to the guy, "Oh, kind of challenge you on that," or you say, "Oh, well, the car might not be here next week. We're selling a lot of them." Like you're just trying to help yourself, right?
Okay, gotcha.
You're just trying to make your sale, and you're just trying to get your product in there, get your service in there, regardless of what's going on.
Mm,
If you're challenging, it's same answer. If you say, "Well, you told me that you really needed it next month in 3 weeks, and if you take that extra week, there is a lot of demand, and there's a chance that we won't be able to deliver it for 6 weeks. Like, no pressure, but you should just know that. I don't want you to be disappointed if you call me back next week and you say you need the car by such and such a date." It's the same answer, but it's a very different reality. It's a very different reason for challenging, and you're explaining it very differently.
mm,
So challenging is always okay if you're doing it in the best interest of your prospect. Now we're
okay.
talking about challenging a client is different.
Yeah.
You have a relationship, and if they hired you as a consultant, for example, like I get hired and like you get hired,
Mm,
they expect us to challenge them. If we don't, well, why are they even dealing with us, right?
right.
So challenging to me, when you're challenging a prospect, you must set it up and always have them understand that the reason you're challenging is to help them move forward in their business.
Mm.
And if at any point that is not clear, it will not work.
And so, and then how do you? So I have a few a few ways we can go here, but one thing that's kind of popping up right now is like we talk a lot about creating urgency and stuff like that, and so it seems like what you were saying before and maybe it was just the example, but it's like on the one hand, yes, you're serving yourself, but you're also kind of doing what you've been taught to do, which is like creating urgency, right? Like, well, the car might not be available next week, or whatever. So is it more a matter of like frame of mind, or is it like how should I position it? If I'm this car salesman that you were talking about, and I know fully well that if they come back next week, there's a good chance the car is available.
Well,
Um,
I'll tell you, and listen, I don't really believe in creating urgency because, like you just said, you're creating it. If you're creating a false urgency and they come back the next week, they take their chance and the car's still available, you say, "Ah, stupid, stupid sales guy, he's just bullshitting me." I believe in putting the urgency forward for what it is. So if your service is going to help them right away and they want to wait, you might challenge them and say, well, what's going to happen if you wait and don't fix your problem? You're not creating urgency, you're making the urgency obvious.
Right.
You're uncovering the urgency.
Right.
I know a lot of people talk about creating urgency. I personally hate when a salesperson tries to create urgency in me. It has the exact opposite effect. I see right through them. When I go to a store specifically, or I'm trying to buy something and say, "Oh, yeah, these are going fast," it's like, piss off. It doesn't. But if you uncover the urgency, if you uncover the true reality for them, again, their urgency, how important is it to them? If you're getting them to buy a service or product that's going to help them in their business, well, then maybe there's urgency, because maybe they're losing money every moment that they wait.
Right. So it's more about taking what they've told you at let's say an earlier stage of the discovery process, and kind of bringing it back when it comes to the decision making. In your example, obviously, it could happen.
Yeah, let me give you a really simple example. Let's put it out there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I think it's. So let's do a really specific example.
Yeah.
Someone says to you, you've got a great service, and they say to you, towards the end of the conversation, they say to you, Fab, I like what you're presenting to me, but we have other priorities right now. Can you call us back in 6 months? And then you say, sure, of course, right? As we've been taught, you lower resistance, and then you'll probably say something to the effect of, so, let me ask you, Paul, if you wait 6 months, you told me earlier that you're losing whatever dollars a month, or that you're losing whatever opportunities a month. What's going to happen in 6 months? Well, I'm going to lose that more opportunities. And then you can say, well, can I challenge you? Do you really think it's a good idea to wait? Right? So there you're not creating urgency. Again, you're uncovering the urgency and you're putting it forward for their cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like someone who needs a knee operation and says, oh, I'm going to wait. Well, you can't ski for 6 months while you wait, right? You'll get the knee operation right away. So
right.
Just, what's your lifestyle? Well, if you don't ski anymore, you can wait. If you desperately want to get back into ski slopes, you'll probably need 3-4 months of rehabilitation. So, you better think of it sooner than later.
Gotcha. And so maybe that's hard to answer, but and everybody's different. But then, so given what you've just said, which is not necessarily about creating urgency and creating fake challenges in a way, it's more about uncovering them and maybe making them more obvious to the person you're speaking with. Why do you feel reps have such a hard time challenging? Like in the example that you gave, right? Call me back in 6 months. I'm sure you know a lot of reps that would say like, okay, and then kind of hang up the phone.
I'll put it to you this way. Reps are not paid in certain companies. They're paid to sell. They're paid on commission what they sell. So their priorities become, what can I do for me? How much can I sell? And I think this is a bad approach. I think the people that do really well is because they think of their clients. And if it's not the case, it's going to come back and bite them in the ass if they're not selling the right thing. No. So I firmly believe that if you're selling anything, product or service, if you don't think it's the best thing for the client, it's not a good thing.
Right.
So I think that the rep that has the only, I remember in the old days when I was selling, I can still hear some of my managers, not all of them, but one of them, go sell, sell, sell. It was never help the client.
Right.
And had it been help the client, I think I would have sold better back then when I didn't know how to sell.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's important. I don't want to work with people who just want to sell to sell. Right. I don't want to work with people who just want to push their product because they want to give it to me. Right.
Right.
It's a luxury item, very different. If you're trying to convince me to buy some fancy watch or a fancy car that, we all know has no purpose other than just me, well, then that's a very different thing. Then I might play on their desire for luxury, whatever, because they're in here buying a luxury item. But if you're selling a useful product or service and you're just pushing it down their throat,
right?
I firmly do not believe in that. I think you need to you can challenge a client, you can challenge a prospect, you can uncover the urgency, but these are all things that you've discovered. that you've asked questions about, and you're going to focus on what's important to them. So you want to challenge when someone is not being logical in their decision. If I've talked to you for 2 hours and you've said to me, Paul, I need this, I need that, it's going bad. And then at the end you say, but I'm not going to do anything. Well, what happens when you don't do anything, Fab?
Right.
Status quo.
Yeah.
So that's very different.
Right. Right.
I'm going to stop talking.
No, that makes sense. I'm still trying to bridge the gap. I'm like, as to, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then why is it still a challenge for so many reps? Like, why would an average rep still say, okay, I'll call you back in 6 months, even though you might know? So what it could be, maybe you did a bad discovery call and you didn't.
Yeah, you're right. The average rep might say, I'll just call you back in 6 months. Oops, sorry, I didn't mean to give you the finger. The average rep might say, I might call you back in 6 months, or he might try to challenge, but for this wrong reason. So,
right.
If you really believe in what you're doing, you should be challenging your client, saying, well,
Right.
you're making the best decision.
Right. So that's it. So it's like, what I'm hearing is that it's maybe it's a sales training thing, but it's a matter of like the frame of mind, right? Like if I'm in a company that's like sell, and I'm speaking to somebody and I'm not comfortable creating a fake urgency, I might not challenge them. Or if I'm not convinced that it's the right product, or right service or whatever, I might just pull back as well.
Yeah, and if you're not convinced you're selling the right product to the person, then you need to ask the questions too. You need to be sure of this, right? Because that's another thing too, right? I mean, you need to. If you don't believe in your product, first of all, you shouldn't be working there. You're just doing it to sell. Like if you're, selling for some crazy company that has this, terrible product,
Yeah.
And you don't believe in it, don't work there.
Yeah.
Find something else to do. And that's what it boils down to. If you don't believe in what you're selling, I'm not going to give you any tricks or tactics. I want you to believe in what you're selling, and I want you to believe it'll help the client. And if you don't do that, I don't want to help you.
Right.
Right? And you're the same. I know that about you. We both. And yes, you can uncover the urgency. You can bring it up, but I don't think you can create an urgency unless. Caveat. I like contradicting myself in the same podcast. Unless they didn't know about something. And because of your questioning, you're making them discover something. And then you're making them, but again, it's more uncovering than creating. And then you might say, well, let's say you're selling these, great new products for contractors that I don't know, stop floods. Well, your client might not even know about it. Say, oh, I want one of those stop flood things in my building.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, then you're creating an urgency. Well, when you're building, it needs to go in at that stage next week. Okay, well, kind of make your decision.
Yeah.
Are you creating an urgency or uncovering an urgency? Depends, but that's different. If you're making them discover a new product that's going to make their life easier or better, then maybe you are in a form creating urgency. And why don't people do that? I don't know, Fab. I don't understand why some people are in sales. Maybe it's just for themselves and they're terrible salespeople, and some people just don't care and they give up too easily, maybe because sales are too easy. Some people are like, oh, it's just too easy, I'll move on to the next one. I was just talking to a client of mine this morning who said that she had walked into a car dealership and she had the worst service in the world.
Right.
And she said, if it weren't for the fact that I'm friends with the owner, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't be going back there. So it's kind of, well, what happened to that salesperson? Does he have so many cars that he can sell that he just doesn't care about that client? What is it? So I think that's why you need to have your client's best interest at heart first and foremost.
Right. And so what I'm hearing then is like, sure, there's maybe some, maybe putting pressure in the wrong places, like sell, and some people might not be comfortable with that, or might not be comfortable creating that false urgency. But what I'm hearing also is that if you're having a hard time challenging a prospect, it might be that your discovery call or your discovery sessions or whatever is weak because you just haven't found urgency. And maybe the client doesn't, right? Like, it'd be nice to have it happens too, but it could just be that it could also be, I should say, that you're not uncovering urgency. So when the client tells you, I'll call you back or call me back in 6 months, you just really have nothing to go off of, right? Because you don't know if it's urgent. And I guess you can always like pick it up there and what's going to change in 6 months and all that stuff and try to pick it up from there. But I think it could be a good indication that if you're not able to challenge a prospect, it's because you didn't discover an urgency.
Yep. And if you know, and that's part of qualifying, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
really comes into qualifying. If the client's not right for you, don't ram it down the throat. Just move on to another client.
Right.
You're qualifying properly. It's about them. It's not about you.
Nice.
You're qualifying to make sure that what you're doing for them is going to help them.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that. I know you're the same. We don't want to work with someone who just wants to push the product out there.
No.
You know,
No.
unless
No.
it's a
For sure.
like I said, you know, if it's some fun thing, then you know you're trying to get people to do an impulse buy or whatever.
But even
Or,
that, I mean, we can go into the whole psychology of like why somebody buying a luxury item, and obviously means something to them, you know. So,
yeah, but you're not, you know, you're not filling a necessary need. You know, it's not like if I don't have this. Sorry, guys, my eyes. um, if you're not filling that need, they're gonna, you know, not have success or whatnot. You know, I mean, if someone's coming in to buy your Rolls Royce, it's, you know, it's a very different approach. They're
right.
telling you about, you know, why do I drive this car? Why does it make me feel good? You know, it's a whole different. It's a psychological play, right? And
Yeah.
it's, you know, the best of the best luxury, and you know, and how it feels when you're on the highway, and how it feels when you know you're just parked or whatever it is. Like there's, but it's not like, oh, I need this car to, you know, drive my taxi.
Cool. So if I can summarize, and maybe we'll just keep it a short episode, is like if you're finding yourself or you're finding your sales team is having a hard time challenging, it could be one, and correct me if I'm wrong, but one, it could be maybe like they're trying to push them to challenge in a bad way, like it's about themselves, and some people might not be comfortable doing that. The other could be maybe it's time to review how discovery calls are made, because if you're not challenging because you feel there's nothing to challenge on, it could be that you're not diving deep enough in your discovery sessions.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It could be either or. Correct.
Excellent. Awesome.
Great summary, Fab.
Excellent. Thank you, Paul.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Fab.
everybody. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon. Bye bye.